Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. What's going on, everybody? I'm pretty sure we're live right now. I'm Justin Thomas, the host of TopShelf Fandom. This is Before the Dust Settles. We're doing this for the final episode of season 1 and what I tend to believe will be the only season of Watchmen. How They Fly, I believe, is the episode's title. And
yes.
Yep, there we go. You can tell how sure I was. Sorry, guys, we're rushing to get this LBS together. But no more inside baseball. Let's talk about the man that's with me. The go-to for breakdowns, analysis, and anything that is entertaining and intelligent. Hacks Dogma is with me, and we are going to go to it. Well, pretty much anything. I'm sure there's something you don't know too much about, but yeah.
I'm sure there's lots, yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, man. Hey, everybody. Today we're talking about the final episode of Watchmen. I mean, wow, what an incredible journey it's been. I enjoyed it, starting off. But Justin, what do you think, man?
I honestly, like we talked a moment ago off air, and I was expressing that I thought it was beautiful. I thought the show handled these issues in a balanced way. Surprisingly, I think you have to be willing to accept that they're not just shoving one ideology or one point of view or one perspective down your throat. There's a mixture of issues for people that lean one way politically, another way, and so forth. But like the big picture messages, themes, the sentiment behind the show, the emotional spine, I thought, man, beautiful, like so well done. The episode itself, I feel, and this is, man, Lindelof, if he ever watches this, this is probably why the guy's so frustrated, because like honestly, like you tied up everything, bro. You did it. And now I'm like, some of it felt a little bit like contrived, a little bit like so like maybe they didn't need to do that. They didn't need to check all the boxes. So fuck me, right? I did enjoy the episode. I enjoyed episode 8 in a thematic speaking from a thematic perspective. Like God, I can't speak right now. Speaking about, like, okay, when I watched the episode, what I enjoyed, how thrilled I was, my excitement, on the edge of my seat. Episode 8, I felt was it pulled me in. This episode, it gave us all, it bookended, it closed it up, it threaded all those story threads together, it tied up all the loose ends. I just wasn't as engaged, is immersed into it, and now I'm gonna start being able to say words. So
I will say that my favorite episode this season was the black and white one. Episode 4 or 5, I forget the title of it, but also I think we might have an echo. Also, disclaimer, I am a little under the weather, so if you hear me coughing or stuff like that, I apologize. The overall, I mean, I loved this episode. I'm very much oh, I'm sorry, I just figured out why I was echoing. Okay, so yeah, I love the episode. Fandom, I see that you have some kind of criticism about it in the chat there. If you want to break that down a little more, I'm curious, in any specific thing that we can talk about that was substandard. Not to say that this episode was the greatest or anything. Again, previous ones were my favorite, but if there's any specific instance that you want to dive into, I'm totally down.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Let us know how you feel in the chat. That's why this is live. Again, I'm trying to do far less live streams. The only time I think that we need them is either before or after show, and before the dust settles is one. So, this is about our initial reactions. I full disclosure, just as Hax is a little bit sick, I was doing a little bit rushing around when I was watching this episode, so that could explain why it fell a little flat for me. But I overall loved it. So what Fandom D Saint said, Justin, and then he's quoting me here. I thought this show was beautiful. Translation: this was trash, but hey, at least we got Westworld season 3. No, I don't. First off, don't speak for me, sir. Do not speak for me. How dare you? I shall speak for myself. I thought that what I mean by that is there's a lot of, well, first off, there's a lot of connections to Westworld with determinism and how we view, our lives and the decisions we make and how much agency we have and so forth. And we'll get into that in a little bit. The ambiguity thing about, cloaking yourself and how that stops progress, and how there just is, there, there really is very few positive, um, aspects of acting in an ambiguous way, because you just are furthering the agenda, the status quo. In unfortunately, in our world, the status quo is not always great. It always, it favors some people more than others. So um also, when you mask yourself, you have to ask, why would somebody mask themselves other than the fear and stuff like that? That would imply to, like, let's just look at like a child's point of view, which I can do very well. They would have to think, oh, well, they're masking themselves because they don't want to show what they are. So if they don't want to show what they are, that must mean what they are is bad, right? So that goes for sexuality, race, intent. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, bank robbers. That's pretty clear why they're doing it. I agree with you, bank robbers. Cover your face. But you get what Hex. What do you think about that? Like, it's just it kind of sets a precedent for that type of behavior, right? That type of thinking.
I mean, like at the end with the, specifically the discussion between Will and Angela about wearing masks and stuff like that, and proper healing. Like, not so much that there's like, I think that there's a place in people's lives for that. It both served them correctly in the times that they needed that, but they don't always need that. Like Bass Reeves from, the original deputy in Mississippi hit his face. Um, in that movie because he was a black man in predominantly white areas delivering justice. And just as Will brought in Fred in that episode to the police station, that easily could have turned around if someone didn't validate who he was. So yeah, I mean, like, there's like, masks aren't bad in my opinion. They are representative of something, right? And you see that with the discussion between Veidt and Miss Phillips. And you see that between, I guess, really every person in this show has had a discussion about masks. Um, but yeah, there's a time and place, and now we're at the time and place where it's time to take them off and to move on.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about being honest and in being very transparent. With what is happening and what your motivations are. In cloaking anything, in my opinion, just ends up with, at least, even if they're not doing something bad, the speculation and the discrediting are putting the praise into the hands that it doesn't belong in. So Keen McKay here, wonderful content creator, thank you for stopping by, brother, said, I know nothing about the show. How would you sell me on watching this? I would sell you on watching this because it's very interesting, because it is polarizing in the sense of it's very political. It literally, Lindelof said he was solving for race in the first podcast, which is very ambitious. So that means that, we've got a lot of people that unfortunately think that this show is something that you shouldn't even humor this. You shouldn't even recognize this. This is like some propaganda. This is some leftist stuff that they're just shoving some SJW, propaganda, and they're trying to push, all of their ideals down your throat. And it is a very complex, layered, and in really fascinating method in which they use to tell this story to get across what I believe to be balanced viewpoints. Of course, it leans more towards, liberals' views, but there are plenty of aspects of this show that talk about overcorrection. They talk about a lot of things that the so-called left would be advocates for, and how they wouldn't end up, being advantageous in the end. So this is a show that it talks about human nature, but it's more of like a macro view, in the sense of like how these actions affect people, but the societies in which they live in, and how we frame our heroes, how we frame who the bad people are, how people go about obtaining power, and everything from how we view gods to how we view police to how we view the colonization of, other territories and so forth, like, appropriation, and it covers all these like socioeconomic issues as well as just like society's issues as a whole. I think it's very ambitious, and like I said, the stylized storytelling that they use and the way in which they give us conversation and dialogue is really, really I've never seen anything like it. It's unique, and it's again, it is hard to do something like this well, because a lot of people discredit it from the start. So I would say accept their challenge, and the challenge is, can they pull off pushing a message that I believe is advantageous without alienating half of the country.
Yeah, like, so from my perspective, I honestly think that the race issues were such an accent to the show. Like, in reality, it was a love story of Dr. Manhattan and trying to make the world better understand how he perceives time, by giving us the lens of someone who knows nothing about it. We become that character. We sympathize with the protagonist as the person who, has no fucking clue what's going on. But twist, she is actually the person who knows exactly what's going on. And yeah, I mean, overall, like, if I'm trying to sell you the show, I say just go watch it. Like, I was hooked by the first episode. I have a few buddies that have tried like 3 or 4 shows, and they all get hooked on this political agenda, which, like, I didn't start watching the show thinking that it had anything political to do with it. Like, that was very much pointed out to me. And like, it definitely exists, right? But it is not the show. It is very much a kick-ass fucking superhero vigilante story that is set in the time of Watchmen, or in our time, like, continuing the story of Watchmen. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a fucking badass show.
I,
Period.
I I love what you said there, because you said our protagonist, our audience surrogate per se, Sister Knight, seemingly knows nothing. And as Hax just said, we find out there will be spoilers, guys. Sorry. Never do that. I'm sorry. But yeah, she doesn't know anything, but she ends up knowing everything. Same with Dr. Manhattan. He is living. He's this omniscient being that is living. All time is just all at once for him. So he also knows everything, but is still unable to change it, and is still not, like, we have this tendency to think that if we can just see in the past, like Game of Thrones, if we can see the past, we'll get all these answers, and so forth. And it kind of plays with that idea of like, well, because my thesis on that is, if you can see in the past, all you're going to see is a whole bunch of other people trying to look into the past, trying to figure out how to not make mistakes. And of course, perspective and looking at history and not repeating it is important, but also nobody has answers, like these absolute answers to these big issues. It is more about recognizing that everybody is equal, and we need to approach everybody in that sense, and approach these issues in a balanced way, because like you said, we don't think she knows everything, but then we find out she knows everything, right? But still, like Dr. Manhattan, doesn't have all the answers, and doesn't mean things are going to go great.
Yeah. Let's do also address fandom's input in the chat. The Loot Man reveal. Excuse me. I agree, man. He was nowhere to be found this episode. I have seen some stuff pop up on Peteypedia that does explain that. That basically, shows that it is him. He is Lube Man, but equally, it should have been in the show. Like, yes, I mean, okay, so like, from someone who watches this not knowing that PDPD exists, what happens is now a random moment that is never explained, that leads to nothing, is overall useless. the only use that it gives from someone who doesn't put this in, who doesn't invest this much time into the show, is maybe setting the environment to show that vigilantes are coming back. Because like there is a whole story to Lube Man that is on PDpedia now that kind of shapes who he was and where he came from and why PD was doing this. Um, but again, from the perspective of someone who doesn't put that much time into it, it is a useless part of the show now. So yeah, they should have paid that off, I think. But hmm,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I think that got real meta. That was the Redditor that they wanted to inject in the show. I think that was a little bit of Lindelof taking a jab. I think that I totally agree with that assessment. I guess if I was gonna play devil's advocate, I'd say he did add um to the story in the sense of remember that conversation in one of the earlier episodes when they're on the plane going where they call him a fanboy and he says he's not a fanboy, like he's a historian.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it just shows that these people have been documented and that there's different perspectives on them, which the show, is kind of, revolves around. So, but yeah, I mean, trust me, we could rip him right off the board, right, Hex? He
Yeah.
doesn't need to be there. And I didn't
It
read
was comedy
P2P.
relief. It
Yeah,
was, yeah, for that purpose.
I guess the benefit to that is that, okay, he didn't, because usually if you have secondary characters, they don't have to be all that layered, but usually what they do is add layers to your primary characters, and he did none of that, but his lack of impact kind of gives him a pass, because, he doesn't, you never really think that he's going to be a huge, like catalyst for anything to
Yeah.
have this huge impact. So it's like, okay, but I get what you're saying because of PDpedia. It can definitely be disappointing for people, especially people that were really immersed. I'm surprised you weren't immersed in that. I was not. I thought that would be right up your alley.
No, I didn't really have much invested in Lube Man. I mean, undoubtedly he's my favorite character now. But um, the second thing Fandom points out is I also wish that Will Reeves killed the senior members of Cyclops and not pass it over to Lady True. I see where you're coming from. Um, I don't really have an issue with it. I mean, like, it would have been cool if he mesmerized them all and made them kill each other, just like what happened in the theater. I think that that would have been a better kill scene. But overall, the organization is dead, or assumingly dead, because if you listen to their words carefully, they use the word, or she uses the word that these people represent the senior management, meaning that that is not, all of senior management. So it gives that kind of a way to get back into the story, if there is a season two. Um, but yeah, I mean, he played his role, and he was a badass character that even if he wasn't the person pulling the trigger at the very end there, he still got what he wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. You see everybody, like, it's almost like nobody's method works here. So that's what I kind of really like about this show. Like, Keen McKay is saying, I like shows that attempt to dive into hard political themes. Whether or not they succeed, you can still learn from it and respect that they were brave enough to try. Absolutely. Because these are not questions that have answers. That, you have to have answers for yourself, and that's the best way that you can live. You can't fix the world through Veidt's way. Dr. Manhattan, who lives throughout time, instantaneously, they can see the past, see the future, and so forth, that is living in this whole different plane of existence. He can't fix everything. He causes problems himself. You see people that they do, they change their ways, like Lori, Silk Spectre, for example. She goes down a different route. Like, nobody's got it. Nobody's nailed it, right? But at the same time, it explores these different methodologies, different philosophies about life. You have a utilitarianism approach by Veidt. It's worth killing 3,000 people to save 100,000 and so forth, for the greater good. So it's one of those shows that it explores broader ideas. But like I said at the very beginning of this show, I said what they need to do is to make sure that all of these crazy storylines end up coming together, and with the put Lube Man aside and just let's also consider that he's literally called Lube Man, and they never took him that seriously. So like I like, again, like I'll give it a pass on that, and I usually don't like if they would have like let us like 3 episodes down to believe he meant way more. And again, somebody watching the Watchers is a theme throughout this, throughout the Watchmen, the graphic novels, the Watchmen universe. So I think that they went about it in the best way. One thing that we were talking about shortly before we went on air is I asked Hax, I said, okay, so Lady True wants to take Dr. Manhattan's powers because she wants to fix the world, everything from like the actual environment to society. So she, in theory, has good intentions, right? But we've seen her methodology and the way she goes, the way she goes about these things in the past, and they're shady, and the ethical and the moral boundaries that she's willing to cross are quite abundant. But at the same time, why do we feel that we need to stop her, right? Because like Senator Keen was clear why we needed to stop him. Yeah. I will say really quick that I think it was well enough done with him as far as empathy goes, because he feels like we overcorrect, and I do believe as a society we do overcorrect. We do in some cases, just okay, we fucked up, so now we are just gonna go completely other way. So there's truth to that. That's what I mean about, if you watch the show, it's not some snowflake that, I hate that word, and all this. And again, if you're so weak-minded that you're just gonna be like, oh, I believe whatever I watch, then I guess just don't watch TV at all. Definitely don't watch commercials. But like you can kind of understand like where he's coming from. You don't agree with it, but Lady True, because I asked Hax, because I was, had to do a little bit of stuff. I go, did I miss something, man? I'm like, because they really felt like they needed to stop her. And, at face value here, she is trying to better the environment, better the world. And they just didn't trust her, right? They just, because of her past behavior and the way she's gone about doing things before. Any takes on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, what you said, like Senator Keen's evil side was made very clear in the last few episodes. It's hard being a white man in America, and regardless of any shred of truth behind that, it kind of shapes him as a white supremacist. Period. Even if that's not his intention, the I think the reason, the way that they messed up here is that True's villainy was made very subtle this entire time. Like, going all the way back, like she is very much shaping this idea that she is working for the betterment of humanity 2.0. She wants things to be right. We had that entire theory about her wanting people to be empathetic, and maybe a giant mesmerism tool would be the thing that would bring in humanity 2.0. And then at the very end, they kind of maybe shot themselves in the foot, even because they threw all of that away and just blatantly said, hey, what if we could destroy all the nukes in the world? And I mean, like, that's the only thing that we have on record of her stating what she was going to do with these powers, explicitly stating what she's going to do with these powers. So her evil side was made very, very subtle. So when everyone's all of a sudden like turning against her and doesn't believe that she could be a better Dr. Manhattan, we really don't have a reason to decide with that, because we don't know. She very well could be a better Dr. Manhattan and could potentially use the powers for good. The thing that I'm maybe more interested in is what would happen after she got those powers, because not in the sense of like she would do good or bad, in the sense that after John Osterman got his powers, he was a completely different person. He was viewing the universe unable to do anything besides what he would genuinely do. And it, so I was hoping that we would see that maybe like she would absorb these powers and then she'd go, oh, well, I don't give a shit about humanity and zip off to another galaxy, similar to what we saw previously. So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think a good question is, should there be a Dr. Manhattan? And I think that the message they're pushing is no. Because, in also, secondly, okay, Dr. Manhattan can't fix things either. So there's this idea that they can obtain power, whether it's political, whether it's financial, whether it's God power, like, supernatural, and fix everything. Anybody that thinks that they can right the world, a very important question to ask when somebody says that they're going to fix things is, well, what do you got to find out what they believe is right. Like, Hitler thought he was going to right the world. That was his right.
Yeah.
Not his right to do. God, that was poorly phrased.
That was his Reich.
Yeah, the third one. No, but I don't want to be like that was his right to be able to do it. No, but that he felt that that's what he believed was the best thing. So it's very dangerous to have people. I mean, the hubris of man is a huge theme of this show, and it carries over to Vite. I mean, and it's another connection to Westworld as well, with this geoengineering and all of these people that are just they don't want to address societal issues. They want to just get rid of them with a snap of the fingers, right? It's this like this very blunt and aggressive approach to things, and it's not realistic, right? It's nuanced. It's Will is not a perfect man. Will has a lot of problems. Will Reeves, and he's the little boy that we see from the beginning, and we follow his story, and we have a lot. He was totally wronged, but again, and he did do right in the end. But everybody in this story, you have a reason to, at least it's justifiable to say their way is not the way, but people working together. And that's kind of the good thing about this last episode, is that it is the different methodologies, everybody from Mirror Man,
Mirror guy,
yeah, to Lori, and even Vite, which I want to get to in a minute, and Angela and so forth. They do work together. But again, you see instances of people having to do things without the knowledge of others, right? That shows that it's highlighting another one of the big societal issues we have, is that you can't get progress unless you hide progress from people, certain groups of them, because but it's all about, like I said, what do you see as progress, opposed to somebody in Afghanistan, Syria, and so forth, or even 2 blocks over from your street. It's very, very it's a thin line to walk. So having a Dr. Manhattan, I think, is dangerous in general. Nobody should be Dr. Manhattan, but they definitely, in my opinion, the story should not have been a story in this. Again, I loved it, but it shouldn't have been, like you said, like this fear right away when she got, when it was going to become Dr. Manhattan. Like there was nothing that was conveyed to us that should believe, like, oh my God, she's like Dr. Evil's getting like the powers, she's got some foibles and she's not the best, and she's definitely very loose when it comes to her ethics in her morality. But it's
all subtle things, like compared to Senator Keen literally saying he was I mean, I guess he didn't explicitly state what his plan either, unless I'm forgetting it now, but he just had a worst vibe.
Yeah. Okay. What? Yeah. Anybody? Because that was another thing. I was like, so his plan is to, because he's gonna make it easier for the white man, which thank God, because us white guys, man, we've been getting it. It's been tough for us. But but besides that, like, what exactly? I guess it's fitting for his type of character, because they're usually not all that. He's a man of action. So not usually the brightest type of guys. But was it ever like overtly stated, definitively stated, like how he was gonna make it better for the white guys?
I don't think so. I guess like that's ultimately it. Just make it better for white people. And yeah, that's probably villainy. So, um, yeah, real quick, I do want to touch on something that has been boggling my mind. When Adrian Veidt is leaving Europa,
Mhm.
he gets shot, right? And then
Yes.
somehow catches the bullet.
Yes. Or yeah, it doesn't, or it comes out, or I don't know. Did it ever penetrate him? It was damaged, the bullet. So it was either stopped by what he was wearing, or he got it out, but I don't understand how, or
Yeah, I would.
what the meaning of that was.
Yeah, I was. I've been trying to figure it out. I'll just look on Reddit because I really have no clue.
Oh
That
boy.
that took me by surprise. I was like, what? Like, it was a cool reveal that the game warden was his creation. Like, you know, stop me because I need some kind of challenge. I'm bored. Um,
I don't want to. I just want to take my little bit of credit here. And I'm probably one of them. I said that's his worthy adversary that he created. So there we go. Yay! I'm the best. Subscribe, guys. But then go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, it was just cool. And then like as it ends and he's dying. He's like, was I a good adversary? And he's like, no, fuck you. And then just like leaves. I like cackled, man. It was just so bad. And I was like, okay, that's why he's a good character. Like he's just like it's complex and unemotional and like somehow still very much driven by his emotions. I don't know. Like I don't know how to explain him as a character.
Well, he is so much of a narcissist in all of his worth, uh, hinges on his ability to outwit people and to outmaneuver people, right? So he makes this game warden, and it seems noble, like just like in Westworld, to have that worthy adversary, and that's without competition, there's no usually you don't have as much progression, and you don't have as much evolution, in business and so forth. Competition breeds success and breeds advancement. So it's like that type of idea. But like, so he's the type of guy to give himself a game board, and it totally makes sense to me. But he is never going to be the type of guy to like do anything but crush that game warden and then rub it in his face because he's a narcissist. Like he's giving himself a challenge, not out of like, some self-help book. Like he's giving himself a challenge because like he just wants to again reinforce how much of a badass he is. So I thought it was so fitting, like, and it's endearing because it's just fun. Like he's a fun character. Is he a good person? No, but like he is what he is. And I mean, that utilitarian approach to things is that those are very good philosophical questions. It's basically the trolley analogy. It's how many people would you sacrifice to save, like, a million and so forth. Would you kill this person to save this person and all this, like, how do you go about, is it all about just saving the most amount of people, or is it like, immoral and not ethical to harm anybody, even if that means not harming one person kills a million. You have the two sides of that, which I find to be fascinating, and I think that it really showcases his philosophy and the way he goes about things. It was very ironic, right? Because we see this the squids, which he manifested. He put on this huge like scam of the century, I'll say, with the attack on New York, but it did actually kill what 3 million people, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then but that was all fabricated. But then he uses science and he figures out the temperature to set. So squids do end up solving the true problem. Again, we kind of went over if that was as much of a problem as they thought it was, but I found that to be a nice connect. What did you think about that, and what did you think about Lady True being his daughter?
Loved Lady True being his daughter, and I forget the first question.
No problem. The first question was, what did you think about the way in which they tied the squids back in, but in more of a
Yes.
pragmatic sense?
Sorry, I was focused on the horseshoe in chat.
I throw that all the time, dude. Like I do
Yeah.
that. I'm like, hey,
The
this, and now answer. Go ahead.
the yeah, the squid was cool. It like Wade's mental strain kind of all being worth it because in the end it still was the thing that saved the day. I thought that was cool. I kind of wished it was like that Wayde had a bigger part to play in this. Like, I wish that he would have shot Senator Keen, or I wish that he would have killed Ozymandias, just as like the pinnacle of his emotions coming out, and like his character finally getting redemption and not being the person that was just shit on the entire time. Like, I guess in a sense there is some redemption there because instead of being the person who is manipulated and a victim of all that, he is now behind the scenes and working the controls. Like, he's literally turning knobs in that control room that once caused him so much pain. And that's a cool concept. I do like the idea of that. Overall, with the reveal of True, first of all, I loved the way that their father and daughter, like, Beyond was just like, fuck you, Ozymandias, and fucking steals his jizz, squirts it up her, and smartest woman in the world, 20, 30 years later. Like, that was so Watchmen like it was comical in the same way dropping a giant squid on New York made sense. Like, if there was any way for someone to beat Adrian Veidt, it would be that way, and his own genes coming back to to destroy him. Like, I loved it. It was so good.
Okay, so what do you think about? Is there something deeper to that? Is that a narrative as well on our ancestors and where we come from, affecting determining our skill sets, determining our values, who we are, because they are mirror images of each other essentially. That's why they don't like each other. As well as like you said about Veidt, his issue is he wants credit. Dr. Manhattan is not looking to come and get a parade thrown for him. Like, he doesn't have that hubris per se. He doesn't have that need for validation. He's not a narcissist. He has his own issues, but Veidt represents the other half of that coin, where it's like he'll save the world, but is he just saving it so that world can praise him? Then we do get a nice arc with him because, like you said, then he's doing it behind the scenes, and doing it right. But
Yeah.
what do you think that says about somebody? I know you're interested in determinism and so forth. With Lady True having the same skill sets and just by using his DNA, do you think there's anything that they meant to read for us to read further into that, or you just think it's like, hey, a fun little plot device?
Yeah, I mean, I so definitely a plot device, but
Well, yeah,
there
I'm
is
sorry, everything is. Yeah.
yeah, there's
God damn you.
definitely there is 100% DNA correlating to higher test scores. um there is 100% a genetic the human genome. Like, we're still mapping the human genome, or actually, essentially, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I know that there are scientists that are working on this exact thing, and there are theories out there that does align to genes having a much bigger picture in what we believe, or more than we believe. Essentially, like obesity and stuff, you know being one of the biggest ones. um yeah, like, if your parents are fat, there's a huge statistical chance that you will also be fat, and that is a super simplification of it. But yeah.
Oh yeah, and but more so, do you think the writers meant more to be taken from that?
Do you mean like in the sense of they
Y-
could have an army of
No,
his
just like it
DNA
was
out
that
there?
was that worked in just to make a connection with them and to give him a little bit of work as a catalyst to split them further because he feels betrayed, he didn't want children, and so forth? Or do you think that, because it does fit along with the theme of the show? So, when you've written a novel, as when you put these aspects into the story, that some things, and we'll never know, unless they explicitly state it. Well, they do have a podcast, which I really enjoy, but did they put that in there to have us ask the questions that you were just going over right there? I mean, it's fun
definitely.
because we're gonna, okay, like, I wanted to know if you thought that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that is exactly why. And it may not be as blatant in the show. Like if they were to ever discuss it, it'd be now, or maybe that is the extent of their statement. Is DNA does make up a lot, and we as humanity need to fund more science programs to make sure we figure that out. And things like CRISPR are very fascinating. Uh, Justin, you know what that is? CRISPR?
No, I do not. I was just about to say, could you please explain that for the
Sure could.
for the people? And I was going to avoid saying I don't know, but thank you.
Yeah. So it's it is it's spelled CRISPR. It's an acronym that I don't know the fully qualified
I'll look
word
it
of
up.
it. But essentially, it's mapping that those genes and editing those genes. For instance, like they have found the gene that allows you to be contracted with HIV, and there's the whole discussion about, well, if we can do this, if we can eliminate this from the human genome, then we could theoretically never have HIV again. And as a society, should we do that? Because fuck HIV. But when we get into the realm of editing DNA and creating a master race and stuff like that, we get very Hitler-esque very quick. And yeah, like it's because it's a huge complex discussion. I think we can all agree that HIV sucks. Eliminate it, right? But what about autism?
I'm happy with mine.
Yeah.
No. Well, I think that another point before that is, in a capitalistic world, what happens once you start doing? Do we really think that we have the ability to stop ourselves from just totally cashing in? Because it could be very likely that that's not going to be available to everybody, right?
Not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So like we all agree, okay, fuck HIV, but then the next is autism,
I did not say that. I did not
dwarfism.
say that because So, but yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, yeah. So and like autistic people, and we're still learning more about that every day. Like it is very much a spectrum, and if we all say that yes, let's eliminate autistic genes from the human genome, then we're eliminating an entire experience that people could theoretically have. Same with dwarfism. Like, should we not? And so ultimately, all of that leads to that sharp slope of, once this starts, there is a very hard discussion to have about designer babies, because designer babies, essentially, in the sense of we can just pick and choose everything that we want about our offspring, is a very, very real thing. It is not science fiction. It could very well happen in our lifetimes or our children's lifetimes. And I guess ultimately that is why this was included, is maybe just to make people aware of that. And I don't know.
Well, because absolutely, it's about identity. In the episode 8, we have Dr. Manhattan say, because of his way of thinking, why does it matter what I look like, right?
Yeah.
So there's all this meta commentary on it and subtext. So absolutely. And as soon as you start, making designer cosmetic babies, I think that the only benefit to that, other than having a baby that looks exactly in the way you like, which I think, has its issues in itself, would be the studies, because we would see what people would be choosing. Just like as a sociology, from a sociology standpoint, that would be very interesting, but I don't think it's ethical. And I think that it would further divide people, even though you're, you're creating people because you're essentially, I mean, Hitler tried to do that. So okay, Hitler
Yeah.
fits into everything. It's always a bad way.
Oddly enough.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, he tried. They had their youth camps where they got together and they're all blonde hair and blue eyed, and
Time
yeah.
real quick to jump in. Have you ever heard of Unit 731?
No, I've not. What is that?
So it is the craziest. It is like on the same level of like Nazi science camps, and exploitation of twins and experiments from the SS and Hitler's group and all of that. But it is the Japanese equivalent, and it is a crazy, bonkers fucking tale that I have never heard of. And it basically, what happens is, I'll make it quick because this is totally off topic, but they did equal or worse shit than what the Nazis were doing,
Mhm.
and they got away with it. No one got in trouble because they traded the US government the research in exchange for pardons. In exchange for get out of jail free cards, they were able to kill hundreds of thousands and experiment on them. And it is the craziest thing. Look it up, Unit 731.
Yeah, and I linked CRISPR in there, but that's not too far off from the scientists that we took for the Manhattan Project, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, there is definitely some shady shit that happened in the war, but it is a haunting tale. I'll say
It's
that.
only shady unless you lose. So yeah, I mean, it is dangerous to start crafting human beings to because again, that's the same argument for, and I believe the show is addressing, for fixing the world. Okay, so because again, that's all subjective. It's not, unless you believe in absolutism, like with absolute good, absolute evil, and so forth. It's very subjective. So you run into issues because what that child is perfect in their eyes, and there's just there's no way around. I would just have to just go ahead and say it's justified to say there's no way around that doesn't cause more racism, that doesn't cause more just dismissal of other people's worth when people are just crafting these designer children, because they are just clearly able to get just what they want. So if you have a child, your child is, I don't have kids, but I would assume my kid wouldn't be exactly perfect. So, you learn and you empathize, and you become better as a human being. And thus, you should, in theory, become better as a society, right? Not to say that these, because like you said, there are studies that connect, not only physical traits, but intelligence and stuff like that with the DNA. But at the same time, once you start making those handcrafted babies to your, to every specification that you think is advantageous, then you're just going to become that much less accepting of other people and their issues. Because think about people that have family members with addiction or mental illness, compared to people that don't have that unfortunate situation. It's only natural that it's harder for them to understand it, right? Because they haven't experienced it. So, in a way, these, the faults, like Westworld again, we're built off of mistakes, and these faults lead, the imperfections lead to the path to hypothetical perfection, is what I'm trying to say. You're not going to have a society that is very accepting as soon as we start to, put together kids like we're at Baskin fucking Robbins. In Top Shelf Comedy, just so you know, Alicia, that was I was on I didn't realize it switched my account. I registered that because I'm doing some stand up, so I just registered the name. And yeah, that's not like a parody account or anybody that's coming after me. So nobody wears a mask when they come after me. They don't need to. So no, yeah, that I put it in the chat because I linked CRISPR. So yeah, I mean, I think it's
nice.
I think it's fascinating. I also think that we have some really great action in the series, like you said, but it is grounded. So it has that nice middle ground of being like, it's like, soft magic. It's not soft magic, but it's got it's the same, idea. It's they're superheroes, but there's nothing really super about them except for Dr. Manhattan. But you see, again, the ability for other people to obtain those powers, or at least try to obtain those powers, and the folly in that. So at the end of the day, where do you think Lori per se sits? Like, how do you think Lori's perspective has changed from the beginning of this series to this final episode?
Hmm. So I mean,
I'm putting you on the
definitely,
spot. We're all on the spot.
definitely,
Yeah.
she is. At the start of this, she was very much that character that was just pessimistic about the world. Said fuck it. Willing to shoot people in the back as they ran away. Um, and I think that her character has definitely evolved and maybe more aligned with the good guys. I don't know. I really don't know how to address that. I mean, and maybe that's a fault of the show because her character was like led, at the start of this was a pretty big part of it. Um,
Yeah.
and all turned out to be just a pawn for Senator Keen to want to have this sadistic thing of her watching her former lover die. And so maybe she loses some kind of character progression in that sense. But overall, like where she ends things with, wanting to take in Adrian Veidt, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Um, I do have some kind of quarrel with Adrian Veidt losing in this because yes, it's fucked up. Like he's not a good guy, but he does save the day at the end. So
And he literally doesn't.
uh,
He redeems himself. You like learning his lesson. Like
yeah,
in a classic arc, like that's what you need. So like yeah, I see where you're coming. With that, I with the Lori, I agree with you because she's kind of a static character, and she comes in with a big bang, and I feel like that really is just to really get that reaction from the people that are familiar with the source material, to have her injected in there, and she represents the old guard. But at the same time, she, she doesn't end up playing that large of a role, and her perspective on things is I guess just a little bit more of a middle ground. She wants to help Angela. She's there to be punished, so there's more stakes. Like so she's adding layers to Keen because there's more stakes to what he's doing, and so forth. But it's really not something that's utilized on any large scale. She's not somebody that like it does anything that changes the narrative in any significant way. Like you could tell the story without her. You just have to ask yourself how much better is it with her. But you also have to factor in people that have not read the graphic novels or seen the movie, in stuff like that. So it's like her ideas on masked vigilante, I would have to assume stay the same, but I think like move a little bit more towards the middle. And it's the problem is she never was like a willing participant in that institution, right? Like she
yeah,
was forced into the FBI, so I think that takes away from her agency. No, I don't. It does take away from her agency, right? So like, it's not like she's this hard hitting FBI agent. She is, but it's just what she was. She was backed into a corner and had to do it. It wasn't a choice, a lifestyle choice she made without any outside influence. Meaning you were gonna go to jail if you didn't do that. So it's not like she's like if you have an FBI agent that's like your straight shooter, like your total like classic detective, and just your archetypal agent that is just gonna die and live for the bureau. Then they have doubts about it, even like a semblance of doubt about the way in which they operate, meaning the disregard of human rights,
yeah,
disregard of due process. That hits home a lot more. But it's like if you forced me to go work at McDonald's, and then I'm not gonna like working at McDonald's, and then I stop like caring about the validity of the Big Mac. it's not a huge, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, yeah, but he's like forced to work there, so yeah, it does take away from it a little bit. I think there are a few parts of this series that definitely depend far too heavy on people being aware of the source material, and I wouldn't say it's terrible, but I would say Lindelof said that, it's totally, it's of it and apart from it is the way they put it. But he did state that you don't need to be aware of the source material, meaning like I argue against that. I think that this show loses a lot if you're not, and it's not a lot. You can do it right on YouTube, but I don't know. Do you think that what's the degree of entertainment, uh, what's the value of being a source material, like like a fan of the source material, familiar with it, opposed to being somebody that is a casual viewer? Like, what do you think the level of enjoyment is for them? Like, how big is that gap?
I think it's I mean, I think that it is a fair sized gap because like knowing and I think that the biggest thing is like Dr. Manhattan and what he can do and what he's done. Really gives us a good background into um just more of the universe and because this all ends up being his story and essentially his love story, people that have read the material are privileged to much more than what the show was. So I think that it definitely works on its own. Um, they do give enough information. They do give enough, and like just the episode about learning how he understands time. Uh, in this episode, like I was tearing up when he was talking to Angela, and it was just that moment of like I, I'm I'm still experiencing those things. I'm still experiencing all the love that I've ever felt for you, and with that able to be provided comfort in his final moments. And that was just like, oh fuck, dude, that is so good, man. And like all of that was done through the show.
Yeah.
So it is very much still its own thing and still can stand without people watching or reading what happened previously. But it definitely, you know, you can get more out of it if you want to.
Yeah, definitely. And oh my god, dude, at the risk of sounding like a little bit of a sissy here, I that really hit home for me. Especially the idea that he's experiencing everything at once. Not only is that just like a very interesting
Yeah.
you know whole dynamic, but that he wants her there and he doesn't want to die alone, but like to
Yeah.
we again, I always say story is life in hindsight, and it's condensed, and he literally is living that. There's pros and cons to that, but it's like you're a married man, so you have your time with your wife and all that, but it's like it's segmented out. So it's like to embody and embrace like your life as a whole at every moment of the day. Of course, since he's been through so much, there's also the bad, but there's the argument that it could be evened out by all that good and feeling all that love instead of it being transitory, right? Like just fleeting.
Yeah.
So I thought it was beautiful. It really hit home when he said, I don't want to die alone.
Yeah.
Just because, he is a god here, or viewed as a god. And I thought that was really smart because how much more human can you get than that?
Yeah.
And
It was so good. Uh,
it,
Same.
and as far as yes, it stands alone. I think that the only thing that I'll justify as a critique for it is that some people would have felt lost, especially like because like the phone booth situation.
Mhm.
Like you right away, if you know about Dr. Manhattan, and now I know this because I didn't until after that episode, I didn't go and do the novels. So I did. That was lost on me that he would be the last person that would be wanting phone calls from people and like to like talk about
Oh,
their
gotcha.
stuff. So like I that degree of separation, it's not that it didn't work out, and it's not that it doesn't stand alone. And I guess I wouldn't call these nitpicks, but if we're going to discuss a show, we're going to discuss it. And yeah, I think that you have the risk of people feeling like left out, but they do a good job of not making the story hinge on that. It definitely advances and it just raises the level of immersement and pleasure that you can get out of it. But at the same
I think
time,
so. Yeah.
yeah, if you feel like it's all inside baseball and you've never been in the dugout, then I could see viewers. This is already a show, like I've said this, on the stream, and I've said it before. I do think that this is a show that needs a lot of eyes on it, because it does have social relevance, and that you don't want to detract from that by stuff like that. So, it's not doesn't ruin the story. And of course, it'll always be better to know, but it's a lot of aspects within the narrative do hinge on meaning, like, significantly more. Not that you don't understand that something's happening and you're going to be lost, but there's just so much more out of it, more than usual for lore. Not like in the books, actually, Loris is at Storm's End fighting, like that's,
Yeah.
you get what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
like, and no offense, I mean, I'm sure I'll say that at one point. But yeah, I thought that, yeah, I agree with you on that, though. I'm always worried from a standpoint of high concept, because if you make a television show, you're making a television show. You're not, you can't expect people to go and do any homework, because not everybody has a podcast or even watches YouTube videos or live streams about television shows. They just want to watch a show and have fun on a Sunday night, and I do feel this show accomplishes that very effectively, especially with like the one good action scene with that awesome score every single
Oh yeah.
episode. Like, there's that lowbrow aspect, and I mean that in a very, not in a negative way. It's just, it is what it is. The highbrow and lowbrow, I thought, was mixed really, really well. This episode, we don't so much get action. And any,
I think there's a pinnacle moment. There's the world literally crashing down on her. I thought that was a fair bit of action.
yeah, you get,
It's like Gatling gun, squid rain. That was pretty
yeah,
intense.
yeah, you have, you already had the fist fight. You already had the bar brawl, per se, in the penultimate episode. So this is a more macro sense of conflict. So yeah, this is, the squids going through. So it's very visually pleasing, just like television can be these days. What do you think? And just for the people that obviously weren't privy to our private conversation about the ending, the cliffhanger per se. I believe that it's just as much proof that they could be pressured into doing a second season, but I'm going to lean towards what Lindelof said, that now he never said explicitly that he will never do a second season. He just said that he knew he needed one, and
Yeah.
that's what he wanted to do. So he did leave it open. So I think it's
Yep.
it's a valid discussion.
I think that, from my understanding, what I've read just recently, that he did want one season to tell this exact story, and I love that. I love that he told the complete story. Um, with the cliffhanger at the end, I don't view it as a cliffhanger at all. I think wholeheartedly she is Dr. Manhattan. Um, because otherwise, what's the point? I mean, like, they don't explain you'll need this later. She definitely threw all of those eggs and cracked and destroyed all of those eggs. It's impossible that any of them survived. It is
Egg gate.
egg gate. Yeah, like, in my opinion, it's not as much of it can be whatever you want, because it is what it is. Now, I do still acknowledge that it is displayed that way, that it is, left to the imagination of the viewer, and it can be anything that you want it to be, because there is not definitive proof. But in my opinion, it is what it is. She is, like, even the promo material. She is literally blue in the
Yeah.
promo material. So yeah, I mean, it's the origin story of the next Dr. Manhattan, and I think that is fucking phenomenal. I mean,
So what? Okay, so I found that interesting, because I didn't think about it in that sense. Because Dr. Manhattan, with his different plane of existence, can see things that are going to happen. Now this is done kind of arbitrarily, but there, are you under the influence that that egg being there not just is something he made sure was there, but he would know that it
He
had to
would
be
know.
there because of the fact that she does not. It's not that she has a choice. Well, let's not get into free will and determinism. We'll do a libertarian determinism. It's only actions that are determined, and then it pretty much the shape of your life is already formed. You can decide the color, meaning how you behave. You can control your emotion, but there's actually even secular arguments against that. So have fun with that, people. I actually do have fun with that, but that's not for this show. Kind of is though.
Yeah.
But you get okay. So are we on the same page then? Then that egg was not just there to give her a choice. That egg was there because that's what's happening.
That egg, I believe that he understood um, how his life would end and
Mhm.
why it needed to end, and it was that character progression. It was her. He. eh, we don't know what the next iteration of Doctor Manhattan is going to look like. I don't imagine that it's going to be like uh, they pass on memories kind of thing. It is going to be in my opinion, probably going to be a just separate entity. Um, but I guess we really don't know.
But is it the case of there's there's no argument for, I'm trying to get you to do an absolute here. Is there any argument that she doesn't do it?
Doesn't
But
become Doctor Manhattan.
does she have
I mean,
agency at all in this?
excuse me, sorry.
I'm gonna yeah.
She definitely could not become it. There was some kind of case that the children would be the next generation. But the biggest line to me that stands out is when they're talking the first time that they ever met about transferring the powers, about drinking the egg. She specifically watched him do it as if he was foreseeing the consumption of that egg all of those years later. And in that same exact conversation, discussing how they must, or how he would only pass it on to someone who could consent to that. And, then it brings up the entire argument of, can you actually consent to becoming Dr. Manhattan if you don't fully understand what it means? I think that Senator Keen is consenting to becoming Dr. Manhattan when he steps into that box, but in the same sense, he doesn't know that he's about to be liquidized, and probably wouldn't consent to that. So if he knew the full picture, he still couldn't consent. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that I don't see why not. I don't see why she couldn't not become Dr. Manhattan and it's just out of the world. Um, but in my opinion, it makes the most sense if it is her.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just it's interesting because he does mention that they have to accept it. So that is a level of agency right there. Now accepting the mantle, as you pointed out with Keen, doesn't mean you understand the mantle. We have a president that accepted a position that he definitely does not understand. So it is that's just my views. Don't put it on Hacks. You get what I mean. So like she knows, and he does make sure she stays alive, but it's the idea of that's where it gets tricky. And I feel you especially with your book, you should probably be pretty good at this. Since he knows pretty much the chicken and the egg are they both come at the same time for Dr. Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
So get what I'm getting at. It's she gets to make the decision, but he knows she's going to make the decision to be it. So, like, if that egg wouldn't be there if she wouldn't make the decision, it's kind of like it's a paradox in a sense.
Hmm.
So I find that to be interesting. I think that you can, of course, and I'm sure we'll see theories and arguments online about it, but I would more towards lean, especially I'm with you narrative wise. I don't want to actually see another season, at least not right away. I think that
Yeah.
there's something to be said for a good old fashioned story with a beginning, middle,
Yeah.
and end,
Totally
especially
agree.
especially with the dynamic storytelling. Last episode, the way in which they use Dr. Manhattan's perspective and the way in which he goes throughout life to tell that story, that was some of the most creative dialogue in framing of these events. It's so conveying. You're conveying the nature of a being, and then you're also at the simultaneously telling a linear story through it. It was genius. I really think it was genius. It should be something that, and it could be something that could be studied in film classes, rather than Casablanca time and time again. Trust me. No. So it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I love that. I love the way in which they found clever ways to tell us simplistic at their at face value scenarios. Simplistic meaning, like, you know, they're not easy to answer, but they're fairly like common questions we ask. I should say fairly common questions. You know, like, what is the best way to go about saving the world? Who's the best leader? What is it okay to kill people to save more people and stuff like that? Should you put a mask on if it means you're protecting your family and you're carrying out, you know, justice? Should you have access to guns just because you are a part of an institution that's an authority? But, you know, obviously people can get in with that. And so there's all these like what ifs and all these you know, complex, yes, questions that they're posing, but they aren't, I mean, simple in that way, common. They're things that we all think about all the time, and they address them in a very brilliant fashion. And I think the show really, you know, hopefully will come to be something that people will watch once the whole debate, hopefully, you know, quells and people stop feeling like they lose who they are by watching it. You know, like, it's pretty much like, I feel some people feel watching this show is like reading Mein Kampf.
Oh, they're cucks. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, no, yeah, they're dumb people. Yeah. You know, it's, again, it is what it is. But I am more of that person that I see the need for this show, because to be a moderate in times like these is so hard, because what is a moderate? If you don't agree with either side, those that don't agree with the right are the right's enemies. Those that don't agree with the left are the enemy. There's no room for you. You know, it's one way or the other, and it's going to, in the show showcases that. God, series showcases that so well, about the dangers of being split. You know, having that degree of separation, and, you know, I am more, I don't know, maybe call it manipulative, but I am willing to like walk along with somebody that I disagree with to get the bigger, you know, goal accomplished.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I hate when people just they always complain about who's in power. Trump's an idiot. Trump's all this. I'm pretty much on board with that. But a child, you know, notices something is bad and points it out. It's like, find somebody you support. Find something that, you know, is actually going to help the country. Don't just say we're fucking up over and over again if you believe we're fucking up. You know, don't prove your side is correct by proving the other side is bad. That doesn't make you right. You know, it's just a poor way, and I feel we go about it, and I feel the show addresses that, because we have all these different philosophies and methodologies about how to go about life. What gives you, like, again, even to the degree of Ozymandias with the what is a life worth living, with his utopia per se, right? He is trying to have this this blissful existence in essentially heaven, which turns into a hell. This is very much Paradise Lost. This is very much something that's plagued man since the very beginning of time. You know, like, when you imagine this perfect place, like this stereotypical heaven, it's like, it might be fun for a day or so, and then you're gonna want to maybe have some beers and, you know, go out and have some fun. So it's like, you know, there's an issue with like pure bliss, and an issue with a lack of resistance and in negative outcomes to actions. You know, like, there's no skin in the game and stuff. So I think that there's a lot of philosophical issues addressed in this show, and I think that it's the right time for it, because if you can come and you can have a conversation without just saying the other person's stupid, because trust me, people, that's what they vote. People vote out of spite, because they don't, on both sides. They just don't want to feel like people are telling them what to do, especially. That's like the number one rule. Never make anybody feel like you've told them what to do. make them feel like they make their own decisions. Nobody gets bullied in. Nobody gets told Trump's an idiot so much that they go, oh man, I better make sure not to vote for him. No, it's not the way to go about that stuff. The way to go about it is have discussions, and find middle ground and find that people are human beings, not this just embodiment of an institution in which we manifested. So I think that this show speaks to that. So if you're still watching King, that would be my better pitch for it, or more of a rant and political ideologue. But yeah, I mean, it's just we have X-Ray Chuck, nothing ever ends. Yeah, that's a good clue, right, to the story. But I don't see much value in going to it right away. Maybe wait a little bit and do something.
I think I'd like maybe even just like a different timeline, a different story, a different iteration, time 100 years from now or something like that. I don't know, but its own standalone piece is what this was, and I think that they could definitely build off of it. But if they don't, then I mean, we watched a complete story, and I'll never fault anyone for doing that.
Lindelof, beginning, middle, and end. Clear motivations and goals, wants, and then needs that are discovered, meaning the needs were discovered. Oh my god, dude. And you like you drop some fucking philosophy on us. Like, good job, man. Good job. I mean, I think really well done. But there's something that would concern me about the series, and it's so tied to our times. The same thing that I was just, that's why I'm walking contradiction, but you have to look at both sides. It is so tied to what's happening now. That's why I love it, and it's so. I think it's. I hate to say it's so important to watch, but I just think it's advantageous to watch. That how does this series hold up 20 years from now? A lot of the issues are, okay. I think a lot of the issues are, unfortunately, issues that are still going to be present in some sense. There are some primal aspects to this, but you don't have to do anything. I'm going to go ahead and say that these conflicts are somewhat more tethered to exactly our time than, or at least the last 100 years, than most.
Sorry, I had to cough. I think that we will eventually hit a point in which no one can relate to racism because we'll all be caramel skinned people with bald heads. But I think that things like utilitarianism and, is 3 million people okay to kill if it means that you save 8 billion? I don't think those will ever go out of culture, media, storytelling.
Not be relevant.
Yeah, that's just such a big part of the human experience, because you essentially have to make that decision all the time, in very very small ways, and your hedonistic happiness is very much constantly on your mind, and you have to determine if you want to pursue that or not. So yeah, I think that in the sense of some of the political issues, yeah, this is very much a story for now. In terms of broader stuff like that, I think that will always be relevant.
Yeah. So yeah, it holds up. It stays afloat because it's not gonna, like Greek mythology and stuff like that. Like, that's why you start calling things prehistory, is because stories become so detached because society changes so much. So I guess wouldn't it be fantastic if what you said is right? I don't know about the bald head thing, but as a victim of it myself. So but
Superior.
yeah. Oh, be careful there. No. But wouldn't it be so wonderful if these weren't issues, right? Like race, like that would be ideal. Like that would be like that's. I think that the creators of this show, not to kiss their ass, but would be more than fine with their story not being really needed nor desired. People don't want to view it because they don't get it for that reason. I mean, if anything, that's an accomplishment, right? It's like, oh fuck, I hope racism doesn't go away because then my whole business is done. So yeah, I think that it's got a deeper, it dives deeper and it's broader and it's, again, you should always have those primal emotions and they're there. I think the only thing, lacking would be a traditional love experience, but I think that the Dr. Manhattan dynamic touches on that enough to show you that, he wanted to be human. And then, so, Cal, yeah, Cal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, him opposed to who Dr. Manhattan is a juxtaposition and so forth. So that showcases a romantic relationship and also showcases how hard it would be to live with somebody not only the supernatural, but because he is so, like, just pragmatic and, doesn't have he doesn't think with his, as we often do, and it's not great. We're driven by our hearts, not our minds, stuff like that. So, I think that there's enough in there to really justify it. Were you a little bit disappointed that we didn't see God, I'm gonna get bashed in the chat for this, but I'm gonna call him Owl Man.
Oh,
Night Owl, son of a
yeah.
bitch. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No,
We
I
get
mean he
wink
did.
and the nod with the ship.
Yeah, he did get a mention outside of the show that he wasn't going to be in the show this season. Um, but yeah, I would like to see them. They did kind of set it up with Laurie's character as like her entire purpose of going there was to, you know, kind of
Yeah.
get Dan out of prison. Um, and as that was a big part of her motivation, that not being there also lessens her character. There's a lot of ways that they kind of failed her character in retrospect.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Hopefully, we do get to see him in some kind of capacity.
Yeah, they could have easily, like, just put, like, Danny Glover in the office at the as a chief,
Yeah,
and it would have filled the role. Yeah, I think that was more just, yeah, another good point right there, that you could, like, but in all fairness, that's something we all manifested, right? It's never overtly stated that that's the
yeah,
reason that she did it, but we gotta believe, because I mean, he does say that, oh, and then we can get that, Night Owl out, but she's never technically says the only reason I'm doing this is for that. But that does seem to be a motivation for her. It is a
yeah,
motivation for her. So it is, yeah. I mean, but again, I mean, they can't get them all right. It's just that she doesn't. She does. I think it's just, again, an old guard coming in. A little bit more could have been done with her, but I wouldn't want to have seen, like, 2 more episodes to achieve that either. So, nothing's ever perfect, and there's probably a script, a version of this somewhere that does have, more Lori in it and stuff like that. And also, with Angela actually being with um Dr. Manhattan, and or calling Dr. Manhattan, like, there's some layering that's added to the other characters through Lori, in that sense, that she had this connection. Um, and now the new breed, the new guard is the
yeah,
ones that are really engaging with her, with her people per se. So, it's just, she's kind of on the outside looking in, and that's interesting, because this is a series that is, depicting that very thing, a new generation of Watchmen. So, in order to establish a new generation, you must establish the old generation, and you cannot do it outside of the optics are only what we get here on. We can't expect everybody, like we said, to go and watch the film for what it's worth, or do the graphic novels. So yeah, it works. I think that, I'm gonna be looking forward to your breakdown on it. I stand by episode 8 being my favorite episode, but if you look at the good seasons of Game of Thrones as well, the penultimate episodes usually tend to be like your most
so good. Yeah,
enjoyable, because this is resolution, man, and I've said it time and time again. And a story ending is necessary, but story ending is essentially the death of these people, the death of
these
this,
characters. Yeah,
yeah, that you love. So I mean, it is bittersweet, just like a Song of Ice and Fire, which yeah, so it's necessary. And I do feel that if I had to do any, like a lightning round of faults, I would say two too on the nose um like explanation for how things work, especially with Manhattan. Like, to just like, because you're like, oh, they're gonna try to get Dr. Manhattan, and he supposed like, and then they explain exactly how, you know, he explains how he could lose his powers and be taken to somebody else. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of a little bit too on the nose, like, but then again, your only other options for scenarios like that is to like, show it through action rather than dialogue, which takes a lot of time and it's kind of a waste. But you do kind of get a lot. It's like if I'm like, man, I hope I don't get robbed, and then you're like, Justin keeps his money offshores at a bank that I have access to the manager of, like in a separate scene, like, but it's like
Yeah.
within the same sequence. It's like, oh well, nobody's gonna get his money, and they're like, ooh, that's how he's gonna,
There it
so
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
there it is. And they didn't, I guess I would say they didn't make you wait long enough for some of that. So but yeah, I enjoyed it, man. I've been admittedly, I didn't even get to the last episode until right before your review came out. I've been working my ass off on the Vikings stuff, but this is a show that I find to be fascinating. It's a show that I find to be interesting to discuss because it is relevant to today. I try not to put politics into it, but overall, it's nothing wrong with talking about the betterment of humanity. So, and I think at the end of the day, the message of the show is nobody has the answer, and there is no right or wrong way to go about things. Senator Keen's wasn't the best, but
Yeah.
yeah. Did you? We talked about it a little, but did you have any real issue, real quick? Like, do you think that they could have went a little lighter on his his very very evil
Turn at the end there.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I liked it. It was good, and especially it's there for the casual fans. Like
Mm-hmm.
100% there to go is that last reminder um of hey, maybe he's not the best guy. And it's like you have to remind the audience right before a character death of like why you love somebody or why the audience should love somebody. Equally, you have to remind the audience about their villainy right before you kill them, because you're like, oh yeah, that's why we hate this fucking guy.
Yeah, yeah. I always um discuss that when I talk about the optics of storytelling. It's like Walking Dead does it the worst with the
Yeah.
it's always some guy that you don't know, and then for a minute there you're like, I don't watch it anymore. But when I used to watch it, it'd be a guy named Bill, and Bill's the nicest guy that gives a nice sandwich. He gives up his food to all the main characters. All the main characters, call him by his name or her.
Uh-huh.
It's like they just totally imply that you should know this person, and they also are showing that, man, is that a good person? And guess what? Dead before the commercial
Dead.
break.
Oh
And
yeah.
the first act break, bam.
Yeah.
Terribly
It's like
executed.
dude, I love that, like, I can acknowledge that now because it's whenever I watch a new show, it's like I have a sixth sense popping off. I'm like, "Oh my god, it's about to happen." Like, this is they're setting all this up, dude. This is like, high level stuff. They're about to kill somebody. It's a cool feeling. I don't know.
Yeah, is it? Well, yeah. I mean, I imagine that, especially after in Get Hacks's book, by the way, it's good. After spending time writing like you have for so long, that you start to see trends. It's like most pilot episodes.
Oh,
First,
yeah.
you got a first date, you've got an interview, you've got something that makes people characterize themselves.
Yep.
Those are, they have to say who they are. So then
Yeah.
actions we can see. So it's like every almost every script that I've written has one of those things, like it's the first day, and it doesn't have to be your main character's first day. You could have another person's first day, so they can do around. You just got to get people to say who they are and what they're about. You want to obviously show more than tell, but there's certain things that you got to be like, this is who the fuck I want to propose that I am, to pose to you guys that I am. In Casablanca, he's not a guy that's going to sacrifice anything for anybody. He's looking out for himself, and he even says it. I don't know the line verbatim, but at the very end, he sacrifices himself. So it's like, it's just classic stuff. So yeah, I love it. It's a little bit of inside baseball, but it's I think it adds to the story, in my opinion, to like see like the setups and stuff like that, and you appreciate it more when it comes off, especially with the way in which they deliver dialogue in episode 8. We do have a comment by Lester White. I believe, where is it? Right here. It was about racism. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, sweeties. Racism is a tale as old as time. Yeah, no. None of us were under the. You're right, absolutely, and none of us were ever under. The. We never believed that racism was something that is new, nor do we believe it's something that is going to magically disappear. Unfortunately, as long as we have people that are different in any way,
It would be discrimination.
yeah, they will be discrimination. It's like, are you different? They're like, slightly. I'm like,
Well, fuck you then, man.
Wait a minute. Yeah. So yeah, we're tribalistic people. We're very progressive and optimistic. But I was just saying, that wouldn't it be awesome in a perfect world if this show just made no sense to people 100 years down the line because of those reasons? That would be a success.
And I do stand by. Like I believe that there is a theoretical age of the world and humanity in which we will all look super similar, in the sense of like, we continually grow, more people add to the earth. The internet connects people. We will all merge melanin until we are just, caramel, and that's it. Like we are all just one color, and I don't, not to say that will eliminate, like, if you look at the Black community, light skin versus dark skin is still very much a big issue in the Black community. But again, theoretically, there will be that time where we are all just the same color. And I think that's a really cool idea. I don't know.
And there's proof for it. You're right. And so aesthetically, we become the same. So then we fight about politics. Then maybe say we get something like communism.
Or CRISPR.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, you could just, I don't want the key to getting rid of people being hateful and discriminative is to just make people, force people to do and be one way. So pretty much the enslavement of humanity, of everything right there. So that's what I'm running. 2028, Steve? Yeah,
2028.
I might not be old enough. Yeah.
What's your campaign slogan? Enslavement of all people.
Yeah. No. Hey, it's hey, how about we put everybody into slavery? Vote for justice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hey, slavery for everybody. Think about it. Yeah. No. My campaign would be, I'm gonna try to do some shit. That's all I'm gonna say. No promises. So I think I would vote for somebody that said that. There you go. I would like a candidate, and we'll close it up, to say this. I love how, well, first off, debates are ridiculous. It's like, so how do we solve Social Security? You have 30 seconds and everybody's going to interrupt you.
I love it, dude. I love that so much. Yeah.
Ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to say. You know what I mean? So you just get people being like, with their catchphrases, well, you shouldn't have to pick between having medicine in your belly or food in your belly. No, you should not. Cool little soundbite that will be played tomorrow on CNN a million times. But motherfucker, please tell me how you will come, because you shouldn't, but we do. So we got there. I would like people to have to explain like what they want to do and how they want to go about it, and then I would like them to be forced to say what the aspects of this are that are going to be problematic, just so we get it fleshed out. Like, okay, so you want to have universal health care, you know what I mean? Or just you got to buy in and everybody gets Medicare, you know what I mean? Then like, okay, so what works about that, and then what doesn't? Like, I think there's a lot to be said for talking about the flaws in it as well. It's not to discredit it, but you get a bigger picture right there, because nobody ever says it's not going to work. They just keep promising you it's going to work, and everybody's like, all right, fine, I guess this is the time that shit's gonna all work out. And it's just, we should be more honest about it, because it's just like problem, it's workshop and shit. So, but again, it's like, hey, peace in the Middle East, you have 10 seconds to say it, and a bunch of people are gonna interrupt you. It's like, all right, and bam, you're done. All right, thanks for showing up there. everybody just vote for their hearts. Pretty much, if just vote for the person that you agree with, whether it's your political views, or your religious beliefs, or, your stance on gun rights or abortion is essentially why all people vote. Never for their fiscal interests. So, but that's my, rant right there.
Well done.
Yeah, there we go. So let's see if we got anything in the chat. And I want to thank you again, Hex. Let's see. Okay, so
Lester White also says it makes no sense to create another Dr. Manhattan because there would be no worthy adversary. I would say that that's false simply because you could have said the same thing about Dr. Manhattan before this season.
kind of
you
a
know,
paradox right there because, you know, yeah, who was his worthy adversary? Nobody was another Dr. Manhattan ever. I think Dr. Manhattan is his own adversary in a
I
lot
would
of
like to
ways.
see two Dr. Manhattans
I
just
want
like
Red. I think that's
crazy Matrix shit, just like, all seeing time, like they're having every conversation that they'll ever have at the same time, just like total mind fuck. It's like 10 episodes of just them talking to each other, debating who's right.
well, were you? Was it your theory that they were going to have the Russians were going to make a red Manhattan?
I don't know if I specifically stated the red Manhattan, but I did think that Russian, their intrinsic field generator would come into play.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting. So that would be like the worthy adversary, right? He is not a Dr. Manhattan. It is your God figure essentially in this. He is what people are looking to for answers, and all he can provide you is insight into what's going to happen. But he himself is unable to fix it. So it's another implication that we because again we've been messing up for quite a while. We seemingly continue to mess up. So just because something's bad doesn't mean that you're going to be able to stop it. Just because something bad's coming, even this omniscient being is not powerful enough to stop it. So he's like a walking he's just in constant conflict within his own self, and it's a very interesting dynamic about especially a series that discusses nostalgia, over nostalgicizing in the sentiment that we have for the times that never really existed, like the Old West and Americana and stuff like that. Meaning, like, we just we airbrush things. This is somebody that lives throughout everything. So if you're gonna talk about how we depict the past and how we see the future, this character fits that model. He gives you a different perspective on life in general, more than he's the guy that's gonna solve everything. Because look, he solved Vietnam,
Yeah.
but that created its a whole plethora of issues. So but yeah, I would call clan activity or white supremacy a conflict. Clan activity and white supremacy are issues that definitely play into the conflict. It's social divide. So yeah, definitely. I believe the show did was address history. Yeah, well, they did, especially with Tulsa 21 and a few other, like World War I soldiers in Germany and stuff like that. They highlighted things that happened that you're not taught in school, aren't highly publicized. And there's, because again, back to the over nostalgicizing of things. We in hindsight, we like to clean history up and condense it to whatever fits what's advantageous for us at the time. So yeah, having real accounts, unbiased accounts, which are very rare, is very, very telling. But again, everybody documents history for somebody. They are doing it. Where do they live? Who are they? Why are they doing it? All that. Who, why, when, and where. So it's, as soon as you start putting the pen down to the paper and writing down things that happen, you start getting things jaded. So I think Dr. Manhattan works in that sense. He kind of is like a metaphor for being able to see everything clearly, but still not being able to fix it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's got, again, it's always going to be questions that don't have answers, and I think questions are more fascinating than answers in a lot of ways, because if anybody tells you that they got the answer to complete success and happiness in life, I mean, if you really do, please instant message me, hit my DMs. But it's all subjective. What is happiness to you? What you value and so forth is all subjective. Of course, we'd all like to not have to worry about money or putting medicine in our belly or food in our bellies, but it gets a lot more complex than that. So happiness itself is something that's debatable, and you can mold your life to have it fit with your means. Sometimes you have to. Happiness can sometimes mean a happy meal from McDonald's or a Porsche. I don't know. Depends where you're at in life. So, any final thoughts there, Hax?
No. Great season, and sad to see it end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting because there's not so much to say about this episode, and that's kind of a good indication that they did what they needed to do.
Yeah, they finished the story.
Yeah,
and,
it doesn't happen these days.
Yeah,
and there's not some big fight about it. Like, what the fuck did John just do? What the fuck?
Yeah, it is capitalism over storytelling, and it's surprising that Warner Brothers and their fucking piece of shit ways are not wanting to milk this for everything that it's worth, and forcing HBO to make this run for 10 seasons and so on and so forth. But yeah, it was a great story, and if we get more, then awesome. If we don't, then just the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know that first off, thank you so much for coming on. Hex's channel is in the information below, and I do mean it. Like Keen McKay is the go-to for Vikings. Hex is your go-to for Westworld breakdowns, individual breakdowns, and Watchmen. The best, hands down.
Appreciate that, man.
Well, it's intelligent and it's entertaining. So I wouldn't give you the credit if you didn't deserve it. Trust me, I wouldn't do it. It was not in my best interest. So yeah, you know what I mean. I'm not gonna be like, he's the best, and then everybody goes there and you suck. No, they know you're good. You're excellent. So by the time end of Westworld, you're gonna be over 100K, and hopefully I'll be at 50. So no, I really enjoy having you on, and you always are a sensible, well-spoken, and balanced opinion. Provide a balanced opinion. You're
Likewise,
not.
Man.
You're not I just said you're an opinion. I've had trouble talking today. So yeah, you're you're nothing but an opinion, sir.
I'm a singular opinion.
Yeah, you're like, that's your opinion. I'm like, you're an opinion. But no, I enjoy it. Thank you guys for stopping by as well. And it is, this is a series that I believe is intriguing in multiple ways. It is intriguing because it is a very touchy subject matter, as well as the business side of it. This I underestimated. I thought this show was literally just to hold people over from not getting rid of their HBO subscriptions till Thrones came. Yeah. Like I said that multiple times, and I can't erase it, so I have to admit to it. But I was way off, right? It was very ambitious. Like, this was a passion. I underestimated Lindelof. This is gonna make me watch Lost, which is like essentially getting a vegan to eat like some freaking venison that they shot themselves. So like, I mean, I'm serious. Like, it totally blew my mind as far as my expectations. And that's the best thing about storytelling. You give people what they want in unexpected ways. That's the key. Well, I can only tell you the key to failure, but I see that as a pretty good method. So yeah, make sure to subscribe, guys. I got a Vikings video coming out. Hax in a few days will have his breakdown for this. And yeah, just keep your eye out for more content coming. And as soon as we get a solid date on Westworld, we'll let you know what's going on with that. So thank you guys again. And if you'd like to support either of us on Patreon, it means a lot. And I'll tell you what, if $3 is something that doesn't have a huge financial impact on you, because I won't argue against a Starbucks coffee. I think that's a pretty good use of that money as well. But I can't stress enough how much $3, the bare minimum for Patreon on my channel helps me. I don't make money off content. I just don't want to lose money. So if you want to make a big impact with a reasonably small amount of money, this is a chance to do it. But again, Starbucks coffee. So I'm not going to say that that's not an option as well. And Hacks is, obviously, you should support people that make good content. And you can't argue that with Hacks. He definitely makes good content. So put your money
Likewise,
where thank you. Put the money where the talent is, people. Or get Starbucks,
Or Starbucks, yeah.
I got stock. I got stock.
Win-wins.
I got stock in Starbucks. So, all right. Thank you, guys. And we will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Oop, I hit start recording instead of stop stream.